Tonight's cozy reading is a quiet selection of poetry chosen for rest and gentle listening. This is a soft-spoken, uninterrupted reading. Now let's settle in and enjoy. Winter with the Gulf Stream by Gerard, Manley, Hopkins. The boughs are bare enough, but earth has not yet felt the snow. Frost fringe our ivies are, and rough, with spiked rime the brambles show. The hoarse leaves crawl on hissing ground. What time the sighing wind is low. But if the rain blasts be unbound, and from dank feathers ring the drops, the clogged brook runs with choking sound, kneading the mounded mire that stops his channel under clammy coats of foliage fallen in the copse. A single passage of weak notes is all the winter bird dare try. The moon, half-orb, ere sunset floats, so glassy white about the sky, so like a berg of hyaline, penciled with blue so daintily. I never saw her so divine, but through black branches, rarely dressed in streaming scarfs that smoothly shine. Shot over with lights the emblazoned west, where yonder crimson fireball sets, trails forth a purfled silken vest. Long beds I see of violets and beryl lakes which they reef over. A Pactolian river frets against its tawny golden shore. Always the molten colors run, till, sinking ever more and more into an azure mist, the sun drops down engulfed, his journey done. January by Robert Bridges. Cold is the winter day, misty and dark. The sunless sky with faded gleams is rent, and patches of thin snow outlying mark the landscape with a drear disfigurement. The trees their mournful branches lift aloft. The oak with knotty twigs is full of trust. With bud-thronged bough the cherry in the croft. The chestnut holds her gluey knobs upthrust. No birds sing, but the starling chaps his bill and chatters mockingly. The newborn lambs within their straw-built fold beneath the hill answer with plaintive cry their bleating dams. Their voices melt in welcome dreams of spring, green grass and leafy trees and sunny skies. My fancy decks the woods, the thrushes sing, meadows are gay, bees hum and scents arise. And God, the Maker, doth my heart grow bold to praise wintry works not understood, who all the worlds and ages doth behold, evil and good as one, and all as good. As if some little Arctic flower, by Emily Dickinson. As if some little Arctic flower upon the polar helm went wandering down the latitudes until it puzzled came to continents of summer, to firmaments of sun, to strange bright crowds of flowers and birds of foreign tongue. I say, as if this little flower to Eden wandered in. What then? Why, nothing, only your interference therefrom. Uphill, by Christina, Rossetti. Does the road wind uphill all the way? Yes, to the very end. Will the day's journey take the whole long day? From morn to night, my friend. But is there for the night a resting place? A roof for when the slow dark hours begin? May not the darkness hide it from my face? You cannot miss that inn. Shall I meet other wayfarers at night? Those who have gone before. Then I must knock or call when just in sight. They will not keep you standing at that door. Shall I find comfort, travel sore and weak? Of labor you shall find the sum. Will there be beds for me and all who seek? Yea, beds for all who come. Winter Stores, by Charlotte Brontë. We take from life one little share, and say that this shall be a space redeemed from toil and care, from tears and sadness free. And happily death unstrings his bow, and sorrow stands apart, and for a little while we know the sunshine of the heart. Existence seems a summer's eve, warm, soft, and full of peace. Our free, unfettered feelings give the soul its full release. A moment, then, it takes the power to call up thoughts that throw around that charmed and hallowed hour, this life's divinest glow. But time, though viewlessly it flies, and slowly will not stay, alike through clear and clouded skies, it cleaves its silent away. Alike the bitter cup of grief, alike the draught of bliss, its progress leaves but moment brief for baffled lips to kiss. The sparkling draught is dried away, the hour of rest is gone, and urgent voices round us say, Ho, lingerer, hasten on. And has the soul, then, only gained, from this brief time of ease, a moment's rest when overstrained, one hurried glimpse of peace? No, while the sun shone kindly over us, and flowers bloomed round our feet, while many a bud of joy before us unclosed its petals sweet. An unseen work within was plying, like honey-seeking bee, from flower to flower, unwearied, flying, labored one faculty, thoughtful for winter's future sorrow, its gloom and scarcity, prescient today of want tomorrow, toiled quiet memory. 'Tis she that from each transient pleasure extracts a lasting good. 'Tis she that finds, in summer, treasure to serve for winter's food. And when youth's summer day is vanished, and age brings winter's stress, her stores, with hoarded sweets replenished, life's evening hours will bless. Sheep in Winter by Clare. The sheep get up and make their many tracks, and bear a load of snow upon their backs, and gnaw the frozen turnip to the ground with sharp quick bite, then go noising round. The boy that pecks the turnips all the day, and knocks his hands to keep the cold away, and laps his legs in straw to keep them warm, and hides behind the hedges from the storm. The sheep, as tame as dogs, go where he goes, and try to shake their fleeces from the snows, then leave their frozen meal and wander round the stubble stack that stands beside the ground, and lie all night and face the drizzling storm, and shun the hovel where they might be warm. I Sought the Wood in Winter by Willa, Cather. I sought the wood in summer, when every twig was green. The rudest boughs were tender, and buds were pink between. Light-fingered aspens trembled in fitful sun and shade, and daffodils were golden in every starry glade. The brook sang like a robin. My hand could check him where the lissom maiden willows shook out their yellow hair. How frail a thing is beauty, I said, when every breath she gives the vagrant summer, but swifter woos her death. For this the star-dust troubles, for this have ages rolled, to deck the wood for bridal, and slay her with the cold. I sought the wood in winter, when every leaf was dead. Behind the wind-whipped branches the winter sun set red. The coldest star was rising to greet that bitter air. The oaks were writhe in giants, nor bud nor bloom was there. The birches, white and slender, in deathless marble stood. The brook, a white immortal, slept silent in the wood. How sure a thing is beauty, I cried. No bolt can slay, no wave nor shock despoil her, no ravisher's dismay. Her warriors are the angels that cherish from afar. Her warders people heaven and watch from every star. The granite hills are slighter, the sea more like to fail. Behind the rose the planet, the law behind the veil. A Winter Evening by Alexander Pushkin. Sable clouds by tempest driven, snowflakes whirling in the gales. Hark, it sounds like grim wolves howling. Hark, now like a child it wails. Creeping through the rustling straw thatch, rattling on the mortared walls, like some weary wanderer knocking, on the lowly pane it falls. Fearsome darkness fills the kitchen, drear and lonely at our retreat. Speak a word and break the silence, dearest little mother, sweet. Has the moaning of the tempest closed thine eyelids wearily? Has the spinning wheel soft whirring hummed a cradle song to thee? Sweetheart of my youthful springtime, thou true-souled companion dear, let us drink, away with sadness, wine will fill our hearts with cheer. Sing the song how free and careless birds live in a distant land. Sing the song of maids at morning meeting by the brook's clear strand. Sable clouds by tempest driven, snowflakes whirling in the gales. Hark, it sounds like grim wolves howling. Hark, now like a child it wails. Sweetheart of my youthful springtime, thou true-souled companion dear, let us drink, away with sadness, wine will fill our hearts with cheer. The Listeners by Walter de la Mare. Is there anybody there? Said the traveler, knocking on the moonlit door, and his horse in the silence champed the grasses of the forest's ferny floor, and a bird flew up out of the turret above the traveler's head, and he smote upon the door again a second time. Is there anybody there? He said. But no one descended to the traveler. No head from the leaf-fringed sill leaned over and looked into his gray eyes, where he stood perplexed and still. But only a host of phantom listeners that dwelt in the lone house then stood listening in the quiet of the moonlight to that voice from the world of men, stood thronging in the faint moonbeams on the dark stair that goes down to the empty hall, hearkening in an air stirred and shaken by the lonely traveler's call. And he felt in his heart their strangeness, their stillness answering his cry, while his horse moved, cropping the dark turf, 'neath the starred and leafy sky. For he suddenly smote on the door, even louder, and lifted his head. Tell them I came, and no one answered, that I kept my word, he said. Never the least stir made the listeners, though every word he spake fell echoing through the shadowiness of the still house. From the one man left awake, aye, they heard his foot upon the stirrup, and the sound of iron on stone, and how the silence surged softly backward when the plunging hoofs were gone. Here in the Time of Winter Morn by William H. A. Moore. Here, in the time of the winter morn, love, I see the sunlit leaves of changing hue burn clear against a sky of tender blue. Here, in the time of the winter morn, love. Here, in the time of winter morn, love, I hear the low-toned bells of changing song ring clear upon the air the full day long. Here, in the time of winter morn, love, I hear the bells, I see the changing leaves, and one lone heart for summer silent grieves. Here, in the time of winter morn, love. To Winter by Claude, McKay. Stay, season of calm love in soulful snows. There is a subtle sweetness in the sun. The ripples on the stream's breast gaily run. The wind more boisterously by me blows, and each succeeding day no longer grows. The birds a gladder music have begun, the squirrel full of mischief and of fun. From maple's topmost branch the brown twig throws. I read these pregnant signs, know what they mean. I know that thou art making ready to go. Oh stay, I fled a land where fields are green, always, and palms wave gently to and fro, and winds are balmy, blue brooks ever sheen, to ease my heart of its impassioned woe. Immortal by Mark Van Doren. The last thin acre of stalks that stood was never the end of the wheat. Always something fled to the wood, as if the field had feet. In front of the sickle something rose, mouse or weasel or hare. We struck and struck, but our worst blows dangled in the air. Nothing could touch the little soul of the grain. It ran to cover, and nobody knew in what warm hole it slept till the winter was over, and early seeds lay cold in the ground. Then, but nobody saw, it burrowed back with never a sound, and awoke the thaw. River Snow by Mark Van Doren. The flakes are a little thinner where I look, for I can see a circle of gray shore, and grayer water motionless beyond. But the other shore is gone, and right and left earth and sky desert me. Still I stand and look at the dark circle that is there, as if I were a man blinded with whiteness, and one gray spot remained. The flakes descend softly, without a sound that I can tell, when out of the further white a gull appears, crosses the hollow place, and goes again. There was no flap of wing, no feather fell, but now I hear him crying far away, and think he may be wanting to return. The flakes descend, and shall I see the bird? Not one path is open through the snow. Salutations to a Mouse by Marsden, Hartley. If a mouse makes a nest of one's written words, is there else to do but accept the flattery? I have deemed it wise to do so. I have thanked him sufficiently as he scurried in and out of the room. He has faced whither with a nest of my words. I did not suspect them of such worth against the cold. Winter, My Secret, by Christina, Rossetti. Tell my secret, not indeed, not I. Perhaps some day, who knows? But not today. It froze, and blows and snows, and you're too curious, fie. You want to hear it? Well, only my secret's mine, and I won't tell. Or, after all, perhaps there's none. Suppose there is no secret after all, but only just my fun. Today's a nipping day, a biting day, in which one wants a shawl, a veil, a cloak, and other wraps. I cannot ope to everyone who taps. And let the draughts come whistling through my hall, come bounding and surrounding me, come buffeting, astounding me, nipping and clipping through my wraps and all. I wear my mask for warmth. Whoever shows his nose to Russian snows, to be pecked at by every wind that blows. You would not peck. I thank you for your goodwill. Believe, but leave the truth untested still. Spring's an expansive time, yet I don't trust March with its peck of dust, nor April with its rainbow-crowned brief showers, nor even May, whose flowers, when frost may wither through the sunless hours. Perhaps some languid summer day, when drowsy birds sing less and less, and golden fruit is ripening to excess. If there's not too much sun, nor too much cloud, and the warm wind is neither still nor loud, perhaps my secret I may say, or you may guess. Love's Labour's Lost, Act 5, Scene 2, Winter, by William Shakespeare. When icicles hang by the wall, and Dick the shepherd blows his nail, and Tom bears logs into the hall, and milk comes frozen home and pale, when blood is nipped and ways be foul, then nightly sings the staring owl, to wit, to who, a merry note, while greasy Joan doth keel the pot. When all aloud the wind doth blow, and coughing drowns the parson's saw, and birds sit brooding in the snow, and Marian's nose looks red and raw, when roasted crabs hiss in the bowl, then nightly sings the staring owl, to wit, to who, a merry note, while greasy Joan doth keel the pot. An Old Man's Winter Night, by Robert Frost. All out of doors look darkly in at him through the thin frost, almost in separate stars, that gathers on the pane in empty rooms. What kept his eyes from giving back the gaze was the lamp tilted near them in his hand. What kept him from remembering what it was that brought him to that creaking room was age. He stood with barrels round him, at a loss, and having scared the cellar under him, and clomping there, he scared it once again, and clomping off, and scared the outer night, which has its sounds familiar, like the roar of trees and crack of branches, common things, but nothing so like beating on a box. A light he was to no one but himself, where he now sat, concerned with he knew what, a quiet light, and then not even that. He consigned to the moon, such as she was, so late arising, to the broken moon as better than the sun, in any case, for such a charge. His snow upon the roof, his icicles along the wall to keep, and slept. The log that shifted with a jolt, once in the stove, disturbed him, and he shifted, and eased his heavy breathing, but still slept. One aged man, one man, can't fill a house, a farm, a countryside, or if he can, it's thus he does it of a winter night. Henry David Thoreau, Walden. Chapter 5. Solitude. This is a delicious evening, when the whole body is one sense, and imbibes delight through every pore. I go and come with a strange liberty in nature, as part of herself. As I walk along the stony shore of the pond in my shirt sleeves, though it is cool as well as cloudy and windy, and I see nothing special to attract me. All the elements are unusually congenial to me. The bullfrogs trump to usher in the night, and the note of the whippoorwill is borne on the rippling wind from over the water. Sympathy with the fluttering alder and poplar leaves almost takes away my breath. Yet, like the lake, my serenity is rippled, but not ruffled. These small waves, raised by the evening wind, are as remote from storm as the smooth reflecting surface. Though it is now dark, the wind still blows and roars in the wood. The waves still dash, and some creatures lull the rest with their notes. The repose is never complete. The wildest animals do not repose, but seek their prey now. The fox, and skunk, and rabbit now roam the fields and woods without fear. They are nature's watchmen, links which connect the days of animated life. When I return to my house, I find that visitors have been there and left their cards, either a bunch of flowers, or a wreath of evergreen, or a name in pencil on a yellow walnut leaf or a chip. They who come rarely to the woods take some little piece of the forest into their hands to play with by the way, which they leave either intentionally or accidentally. One has peeled a willow wand, woven it into a ring, and dropped it on my table. I could always tell if visitors had called in my absence, either by the bended twigs or grass, or the print of their shoes, and generally of what sex or age or quality they were by some slight trace left, as a flower dropped, or a bunch of grass plucked and thrown away, even as far off as the railroad, half a mile distant, or by the lingering odor of a cigar or pipe. Nay, I was frequently notified of the passage of a traveler along the highway 60 rods off by the scent of his pipe. There is commonly sufficient space about us. Our horizon is never quite at our elbows. The thick wood is not just at our door, nor the pond, but somewhat is always clearing, familiar and worn by us, appropriated and fenced in some way, and reclaimed from nature. For what reason have I this vast range and circuit, some square miles of unfrequented forest, for my privacy, abandoned to me by men? My nearest neighbor is a mile distant, and no house is visible from any place but the hilltops within half a mile of my own. I have my horizon bounded by woods all to myself, a distant view of the railroad where it touches the pond on the one hand, and of the fence which skirts the woodland road on the other. But for the most part, it is as solitary where I live as on the prairies. It is as much Asia or Africa as New England. I have, as it were, my own sun and moon and stars, and a little world all to myself. At night there was never a traveler passed my house, or knocked at my door, more than if I were the first or last man, unless it were in the spring, when, at long intervals, some came from the village to fish for pelts. They plainly fished much more in the Walden pond of their own natures, and baited their hooks with darkness, but they soon retreated, usually with light baskets, and left the world to darkness and to me. And the black kernel of the night was never profaned by any human neighborhood. I believe that men are generally still a little afraid of the dark, though the witches are all hung, and Christianity and candles have been introduced. Yet I experience sometimes that the most sweet and tender, the most innocent and encouraging society may be found in any natural object. Even for the poor misanthrope and most melancholy man, there can be no very black melancholy to him who lives in the midst of nature and has his senses still. There was never yet such a storm, but it was Aeolian music to a healthy and innocent ear. Nothing can rightly compel a single and brave man to a vulgar sadness. While I enjoy the friendship of the seasons, I trust that nothing can make life a burden to me. The gentle rain which waters my beans and keeps me in the house today is not drear and melancholy, but good for me too, though it prevents my hoeing them. It is of far more worth than my hoeing, if it should continue so long as to cause the seeds to rot in the ground and destroy the potatoes in the lowlands. It would still be good for the grass on the uplands, and, being good for the grass, it would be good for me. Sometimes, when I compare myself with other men, it seems as if I were more favored by the gods than they, beyond any deserts that I am conscious of, as if I had a warrant and surety at their hands, which my fellows have not, and were especially guided and guarded. I do not flatter myself, but, if it be possible, they flatter me. I have never felt lonesome, or in the least oppressed by a sense of solitude, but once, and that was a few weeks after I came to the woods, when, for an hour, I doubted if the near neighborhood of man was not essential to a serene and healthy life. To be alone was something unpleasant, but I was, at the same time, conscious of a slight insanity in my mood, and seemed to foresee my recovery. In the midst of a gentle rain, while these thoughts prevailed, I was suddenly sensible of such sweet and beneficent society in nature, in the very pattering of the drops, and in every sound and sight around my house, an infinite and unaccountable friendliness all at once, like an atmosphere sustaining me, as made the fancied advantages of human neighborhood insignificant, and I have never thought of them since. Every little pine needle expanded and swelled with sympathy and befriended me. I was so distinctly made aware of the presence of something kindred to me, even in scenes which we are accustomed to call wild and dreary, and also that the nearest blood to me, and humanest, was not a person nor a villager, that I thought no place could ever be strange to me again. Mourning untimely consumes the sad. Few are their days in the land of the living. beautiful daughter of Tosca. Some of my pleasantest hours were during the long rainstorms in the spring or fall, which confined me to the house for the afternoon as well as the forenoon, soothed by their ceaseless roar and pelting. When an early twilight ushered in a long evening, in which many thoughts had time to take root and unfold themselves, in those driving northeast rains which tried the village houses so, when the maids stood ready with mop and pail in front of entries to keep the deluge out, I sat behind my door in my little house, which was all entry, and thoroughly enjoyed its protection. In one heavy thunder shower, the lightning struck a large pitch pine across the pond, making a very conspicuous and perfectly regular spiral groove from top to bottom, an inch or more deep, and 4 or 5 inches wide, as you would groove a walking stick. I passed it again the other day, and was struck with awe on looking up and beholding that mark, now more distinct than ever, where a terrific and resistless bolt came down out of the harmless sky 8 years ago. Men frequently say to me, "I should think you would feel lonesome down here, and want to be nearer to folks. Rainy and snowy days, and nights especially." I am tempted to reply to such, "This whole earth which we inhabit is but a point in space. How far apart, think you, dwell the 2 most distant inhabitants of yonder star, the breadth of whose disk cannot be appreciated by our instruments? Why should I feel lonely? Is not our planet in the Milky Way? This which you put seems to me not to be the most important question. What sort of space is that which separates a man from his fellows and makes him solitary? I have found that no exertion of the legs can bring 2 minds much nearer to one another. What do we want most to dwell near to? Not too many men, surely. The depot, the post office, the bar room, the meeting house, the schoolhouse, the grocery, Beacon Hill, or the 5 Points, where most men congregate, but to the perennial source of our life, whence, in all our experience, we have found that to issue. As the willow stands near the water, and sends out its roots in that direction, this will vary with different natures, but this is the place where a wise man will dig his cellar. I, one evening, overtook one of my townsmen, who has accumulated what is called a handsome property, though I never got a fair view of it, on the Walden Road, driving a pair of cattle to market, who inquired of me how I could bring my mind to give up so many of the comforts of life. I answered that I was very sure I liked it passably well. I was not joking. And so, when I went home to my bed, and left him to pick his way through the darkness and the mud to Brighton, or Brighttown, which place he would reach sometime in the morning, any prospect of awakening or coming to life to a dead man makes indifferent all times and places. The place where they may occur is always the same, and indescribably pleasant to all our senses. For the most part, we allow only outlying and transient circumstances to make our occasions. They are, in fact, the cause of our distraction. Nearest to all things is that power which fashions their being. Next to us, the grandest laws are continually being executed. Next to us is not the workman whom we have hired, with whom we love so well to talk, but the workman whose work we are. How vast and profound is the influence of the subtile powers of heaven and of earth. We seek to perceive them, and we do not see them. We seek to hear them, and we do not hear them. Identified with the substance of things, they cannot be separated from them. They cause that in all the universe men purify and sanctify their hearts, and clothe themselves in their holiday garments to offer sacrifices and oblations to their ancestors. It is an ocean of subtile intelligences. They are everywhere, above us, on our left, on our right. They environ us on all sides. We are the subjects of an experiment which is not a little interesting to me. Can we not do without the society of our gossips a little while under these circumstances? Have our own thoughts to cheer us? Confucius says truly, virtue does not remain as an abandoned orphan. It must, of necessity, have neighbors. With thinking, we may be beside ourselves in a sane sense. By a conscious effort of the mind, we can stand aloof from actions and their consequences. And all things, good and bad, go by us like a torrent. We are not wholly involved in nature. I may be either the driftwood in the stream, or Indra in the sky looking down on it. I may be affected by a theatrical exhibition. On the other hand, I may not be affected by an actual event which appears to concern me much more. I only know myself as a human entity, the scene, so to speak, of thoughts and affections, and am sensible of a certain doubleness, by which I can stand as remote from myself as from another. However intense my experience, I am conscious of the presence and criticism of a part of me which, as it were, is not a part of me, but spectator, sharing no experience, but taking note of it, and that is no more I than it is you. When the play, it may be the tragedy, of life is over, the spectator goes his way. It was a kind of fiction, a work of the imagination only, so far as he was concerned. This doubleness may easily make us poor neighbors and friends sometimes. I find it wholesome to be alone the greater part of the time. To be in company, even with the best, is soon wearisome and dissipating. I love to be alone. I never found the companion that was so companionable as solitude. We are, for the most part, more lonely when we go abroad among men than when we stay in our chambers. A man thinking or working is always alone. Let him be where he will. Solitude is not measured by the miles of space that intervene between a man and his fellows. The really diligent student in one of the crowded hives of Cambridge College is as solitary as a dervish in the desert. The farmer can work alone in the field or woods all day, hoeing or chopping, and not feel lonesome, because he is employed. But when he comes home at night, he cannot sit down in a room alone, at the mercy of his thoughts, but must be where he can see the folks, and recreate, and, as he thinks, remunerate himself for his day's solitude. And hence he wonders how the student can sit alone in the house all night, and most of the day, without ennui and the blues. But he does not realize that the student, though in the house, is still at work in his field, and chopping in his woods, as the farmer in his, and, in turn, seeks the same recreation in society that the latter does, though it may be a more condensed form of it. Society is commonly too cheap. We meet at very short intervals, not having had time to acquire any new value for each other. We meet at meals 3 times a day, and give each other a new taste of that old musty cheese that we are. We have had to agree on a certain set of rules, called etiquette and politeness, to make this frequent meeting tolerable, and that we need not come to open war. We meet at the post office, and at the sociable, and about the fireside every night. We live thick, and are in each other's way. We stumble over one another, and I think that we thus lose some respect for one another. Certainly, less frequency would suffice for all important and hearty communications. Consider the girls in a factory, never alone, hardly in their dreams. It would be better if there were but one inhabitant to a square mile, as where I live. The value of a man is not in his skin, that we should touch him. I have heard of a man lost in the woods, and dying of famine and exhaustion at the foot of a tree, whose loneliness was relieved by the grotesque visions with which, owing to bodily weakness, his diseased imagination surrounded him, and which he believed to be real. So also, owing to bodily and mental health and strength, we may be continually cheered by a like but more normal and natural society, and come to know that we are never alone. I have a great deal of company in my house, especially in the morning when nobody calls. Let me suggest a few comparisons that someone may convey an idea of my situation. I am no more lonely than the loon in the pond that laughs so loud, or than Walden Pond itself. What company has that lonely lake, I pray? And yet, it has not the blue devils, but the blue angels in it, in the azure tint of its waters. The sun is alone, except in thick weather, when there sometimes appear to be two, but one is a mock sun. God is alone, but the devil, he is far from being alone. He sees a great deal of company, he is legion. I am no more alone than a single mullein or dandelion in a pasture, or a bean leaf, or sorrel, or a horsefly, or a bumblebee. I am no more lonely than the millbrook, or a weathercock, or the North Star, or the south wind, or an April shower, or a January thaw, or the first spider in a new house. I have occasional visits in the long winter evenings, when the snow falls fast and the wind howls in the wood, from an old settler and original proprietor, who is reported to have dug Walden Pond, and stoned it, and fringed it with pine woods, who tells me stories of old time and of new eternity. And between us, we manage to pass a cheerful evening with social mirth and pleasant views of things, even without apples or cider. A most wise and humorous friend, whom I love much, who keeps himself more secret than ever did Gough or Whaley, and though he is thought to be dead, none can show where he is buried. An elderly dame, too, dwells in my neighborhood, invisible to most persons, in whose odorous herb garden I love to stroll sometimes, gathering simples and listening to her fables, for she has a genius of unequaled fertility, and her memory runs back farther than mythology, and she can tell me the original of every fable, and on what fact everyone is founded, for the incidents occurred when she was young, a ruddy and lusty old dame, who delights in all weathers and seasons, and is likely to outlive all her children yet. The indescribable innocence and beneficence of nature, of sun and wind and rain, of summer and winter, such health, such cheer, they afford forever, and such sympathy have they ever with our race, that all nature would be affected, and the sun's brightness fade, and the winds would sigh humanely, and the clouds rain tears, and the woods shed their leaves and put on mourning in midsummer, if any man should ever just cause grief. Shall I not have intelligence with the earth? Am I not partly leaves and vegetable mold myself? What is the pill which will keep us well, serene, contented? Not my or thy great-grandfather's, but our great-grandmother Nature's universal vegetable, botanic medicines, by which she has kept herself young always, outlived so many old pars in her day, and fed her health with their decaying fatness. For my panacea, instead of one of those quack vials of a mixture dipped from Acheron and the Dead Sea, which come out of those long, shallow, black schooner-looking wagons, which we sometimes see made to carry bottles, let me have a draught of undiluted morning air. Morning air, if men will not drink of this at the fountain-head of the day, why, then, we must even bottle up some and sell it in the shops, for the benefit of those who have lost their subscription ticket to morning time in this world. But remember, it will not keep quite till noonday, even in the coolest cellar, but drive out the stopples long ere that, and follow westward the steps of Aurora. I am no worshipper of Hygeia, who was the daughter of that old herb doctor Aesculapius, and who is represented on monuments holding a serpent in one hand, and in the other a cup out of which the serpent sometimes drinks, but rather of Hebe, cupbearer to Jupiter, who was the daughter of Juno and wild lettuce, and who had the power of restoring gods and men to the vigor of youth. She was probably the only thoroughly sound-conditioned, healthy, and robust young lady that ever walked the globe, and wherever she came, it was spring.